Okay, so let's move on to the next exercise called is a palindrome. So this exercise is designed to check if a word is a palindrome. So what's a palindrome? A palindrome is a word where if you reverse it, you basically read it backwards. It's the same as the word read forwards. So we can see that madame is actually the same whether we read it starting from the back and moving to the front, as it is when we start from the front and move to the back. Gentleman is not a palindrome. So very few words are palindrome, and the only ones that I really know at this point is gentleman and madame. So madame and race car. Race car also happens to be a palindrome. So we need to write a function that determines this. And I think this is an excellent opportunity to maybe do a little more with the debugger. I'm not really going to show you anything more with the debugger because if you saw the last video, you know actually more or less everything that there is to know about the debugger. But practice certainly never harms. So here's an example. It has a little stop of the script. A stop is the name of a function that's not complete. And then it has some examples of calling the script down here. And we have this special syntax that I covered in one of the earlier videos today. So right now, if I run this file, let's select run, it writes out none, and that's because this function doesn't return anything, and then by default it will return none. So in here we need to return either true or false depending on whether it's a palindrome. So I'm going to start by let's just start by returning false, just so I have a line, because I need a line in order to insert a breakpoint. And then what I can do is that I can start the debugger by selecting debug. And if I do that, the debugger runs. It goes into the first call of the function, and that's palindrome with madame. Starts the function, and it ends up here. And we can see, if I do mouse over, that word is indeed equal to madame, because this is where we stopped. Then I go back to the debug console, because now I need to experiment a little bit. So what's going to be the strategy for solving this exercise? Well, there are a couple of different ways of doing it, but since you don't know that much about text strings, I think this is going to be my strategy. I basically want to make a reverse word. And this is like something, TBD. So reversed word is supposed to be the same word I have up here, but where the letters are in reversed order. Because then I can say if reversed word is equal to word, return true, and else return false, right? Because that's what a palindrome is. It's a word where the reverse is equal to itself. And I can actually simplify this a bit, because I can say just return reversed word. You can see that this is actually completely equivalent to what I have down here, because when this is true, return true. When this is false, return false. So I can just, no, wait a second, I did it wrong. Sorry, I should say this, of course. Because when this is true, it should return true. When this is false, return false. So I might as just well return this statement itself. Okay, so now I can delete this stuff because I'm not interested in it. Let's experiment a little more, because I have the word here. How can I build a reversed version of this word? Well, my idea would be to loop over the letters in the word and then somehow put them in reversed order. And I don't really... So let's try to see how we can do that. If I want to loop over the letters in the words, I should probably use a for loop. And I'll just check that that I remember correctly and you have seen for loops for today, because otherwise I certainly shouldn't. But I'm sure I saw a for loop here. Was there a for loop? Yes, there's a for loop. That is so good, because this is exactly what we want to do here. So I can write this stuff. I can say for letter in word. Oops, that was wrong. I can do this. and that'll actually print me the letters one at a time. So this for loop, it's somehow similar to the while loop, but it's also different. And the way it works is that when I write for letter in Word, it iterates. It takes all the letters in the word, like in order, and then it assigns the variable letter to each of the letters in turn, and that allows me to print it out like this. So in other words, when I started, in the start, letter will be equal to word of 0, which is the first letter. You can check that. And then in the next iteration of the loop, letter will be equal to the first letter in the word, and so on and so forth. That's what this is all shorthand for. But actually, let's test this with the debugger. So I'm going to stop it here, then I'm going to insert a breakpoint here, and I'm going to insert a breakpoint here, and then we can just check that this understanding is indeed correct. So now I'm stopping the debugger. I press the stop button. Sorry, I did it a little fast. Now I press debug again. Now we run and we hit the first breakpoint. So let's examine what happens in details. First of all, I have a reversed word like this. I have word, which is Madame, because that is how we call the function. And now we are starting up the for loop. So since the debugger has stopped here, this line has actually not been run yet. So that's why we need to continue until we hit the first line inside the for loop in order to really understand what this did. So I'm pressing continue. And now we can see that letter is assigned to M. And when I press go again, it'll like stop. It reaches the end of the for loop, and then it continues by letting letter be equal to the second letter of the word equals to A, and then it should print out A here. So let's see that that's the case. Wait a second, did I press go? I didn't. Oh, I didn't press go. So you see that it jumps up, like it starts over, so it goes up to this line, it goes down here, and now we can see that letter is indeed equal to A. Okay. And we can continue like this, and then letter will be equal to the third. I press continue, and then we ended up on this line. So letter hasn't changed yet, because it's only when this line is run that letter actually changes. But it changes now, and now it should be equal to the third letter of Madame, which is a D. Okay, so how can this potentially help us? Well, let's try to do a little bit of an experiment. So I'm just going to insert a space here, and then I'm going to say reversed word is equal to reversed word plus the letter. Let's see what happens in this case. So now let's have the print statement down here, insert a breakpoint, stop, and rerun. So what happened? Well, letter starts out by being M. Reversed word is updated in this line, so it's equal to reversed word, what it was before, plus letter. So that would be equal to TBD space plus M. In other words, it now looks like this. Let's jump once and observe what it is by just doing mouse over. TBD MA, TBD MAD, and so on and so forth. So this didn't reverse the word, it just prints the letters in the order they come in. However, let me insert a space here. I'm just inserting the spaces for visibility, by the way. And then let's put letter in the front and see what happens. It's kind of like I'm getting a little bit of an idea here. But once you've seen this idea once or twice, it'll come quite natural. But I remember the first time I worked this out myself, I was so impressed with how clever I was. So let's see, I stopped the debugger and restarted it. So now we are in the first iteration. Letter is still equal to M. And what happened with reversed word? Now it's MA. What happens in the next iteration? Let me just put a breakpoint here. Next iteration, letter will be equal to A, because we are still in the loop, right? Reversed word, oh sorry, I forgot to press tab. Reversed word is equal to mtbd. So when I add letter to reversed word, just copy paste and see what happens. It's am. So reversed word will be equal to amtbd. And now I jump once more in the loop. It looks like it's spelling madame backwards, right? Like the letters are coming in the reversed order. Of course, it is the same in front of it and reverse, so it ends up being the same. So if I just remove tbd and started with an empty string, this would actually be a way of reversing madame, if you think about it. Because we start out by m, then it's am, and so on and so forth. Maybe we can illustrate that a little bit better by doing gentleman. Because now, stop, restart. With the word, since the word was gentleman, the first letter is going to be G, and the reversed word is going to be G. And then if I jump once, letter is now E, because that's the second letter, and the reverse word is going to be ET. Jump a couple of times, and now it looks like we are spelling it backwards. So if I remove this breakpoint and run until I reach the last breakpoint of the function, the reverse word will actually be gentleman backwards, and then I can check if it's equal to the original word. It's false in this case, and that's actually a solution. So let me just remove this so we don't get confused. And now, if I stop it and I rerun it, I actually have a correct implementation. And I can just go to the tests and just check that I have done these two correctly by checking the mathematics that I did earlier. It works. And I can check the palindrome function, and it also works. So I actually did this stuff correctly. So I think this is a good place to start, and then I think I'll do at least a couple of more exercises.